I had an interesting question in the comments section of one of my videos a while back. This one came from Daryl Cheshire 1618 and runs thus. I'm from Australia, and so I know nothing about the tube. I know the lines were opened by a bunch of private companies. Can one tube train visit every line, or are there constraints in the loading gauge? In Melbourne it was possible to charter a train and visit every line. Well, thank you, Daryl, because that question did set me wondering. Could one, in theory, send a tube train to everywhere on the London Underground network? One of the biggest problems we face here is that the tube network is huge, complex, and very busy. It is difficult to send a special train along the working lines, but it is not impossible. Here's a shot from a special train on the Piccadilly line. What would make it more difficult is that our train is taking a very unusual route. Typically, trains follow one particular route. There are no services that, say, start on the Victoria line and end up on the Central line, although that was a concept they were quite keen on in the 1930s. Briefly, anyway. But that's another story. Anyway, in this case, for the sake of argument, we are going to have to say that this is a very unusual day on the Underground, and somehow slots can be arranged in the timetable that allow our train to switch between lines, reverse at junctions, run through depots, and so forth, and complete its epic journey. Our journey will indeed be epic. The Underground has 250 miles, or 400 kilometres of track. To put that into perspective, the distance between London and Paris is only 214 miles. But 250 miles is easily within the range of a typical Underground train. Bear in mind that each tube line is many miles long, and each train will travel that distance several times in a day. Our theoretical journey will involve many hours of travel, probably starting early and ending late. But that would hardly be the most masochistic thing a train nerd has done. Trust me, we have a very high pain tolerance in the pursuit of our insane hobby. Is there a train that can travel on every line? Well, as Daryl correctly states, in the early days of the Underground, the lines were built by different companies with different power supplies. Things gradually became standardized as smaller companies were absorbed into larger companies. In fact, by 1933 there were only 3 companies that operated Underground lines. Underground Electric Railways of London, the Metropolitan Railway, and the London and South Western Railway. And the LSWR only owned the Waterloo and City line, which is the odd one out in so many ways. In 1933, all the Underground lines, except the Waterloo and City, were absorbed into London Transport, and the outliers were standardised to the 4-rail power system used by UERL. In 1994, the Waterloo and City line was finally, officially, added to the tube network, and now that too operates with the standard power supply. There's also the question of physical size. Another problem with different tube trains being built by different companies is that tunnels were dug to different sizes. Again, over time these were largely standardised, but still the London Underground has 2 basic gauges of tunnel. You have what are known as subsurface lines, and what are known as deep-level lines. Subsurface lines can take rolling stock of approximately main line gauge. In fact, that's exactly what they were built to do in the 19th century. They were intended to be compatible with main line trains. Deep-level tube lines were not designed to connect with each other or to allow trains from other companies to run on them, so they only take small trains. That being said, a deep-level train can run on a subsurface line just fine. Here's a 1938 stock train, which ran on the deep-level lines, on the subsurface Metropolitan line. There are certain lines that have tighter clearances than others. The Central line around Bank, for instance. So we need a train that can clear everything. I would suggest a train of 1992 stock, which runs on the Central line, preferably one of the refurbished ones. There's also the problem of signalling. Not every line has the same kind of signalling. The long-term hope is to upgrade everything to automatic train control, but that process is not yet complete. The Bakerloo and Piccadilly lines need upgrading because at present they're operating with systems from the 1960s. The Central line does have automatic train control signalling, but it's an earlier version. There are plans to upgrade all this, but I don't know when that's going to be completed. I believe it is currently underway on the Piccadilly line, but please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I'll be honest, friends, signalling is really not my strong point. I understand it's no longer carried out by a man with a flag in a sentry box, though. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that we have a deep-level train that is compatible with all the lines. Is it possible to take that train to every station? Well, we need to look at the connections between the lines. You see, when a train needs to be taken for maintenance, it's useful to be able to get between lines and ultimately onto the main line. Nearly all of the tube lines connect to other lines in some way. The Bakerloo connects to the Jubilee line at Baker Street. That's a relic of the days when the line to Stanmore was part of the Bakerloo line. The Jubilee line connects to the Metropolitan line at Neasden Depot. That's a relic of the days when the line to Stanmore was part of the Metropolitan line. Basically, no one knew what to do with the line to Stanmore. The Metropolitan line connects with the Piccadilly line on the branch to Uxbridge. The Piccadilly line connects with the Northern line at King's Cross St Pancras, with the Central line at Ruislip Depot, the Victoria line at Finsbury Park, and the District line between Hammersmith and Ealing Common. The District also shares a lot of track with the Circle line in central London. As well as the District line, the Circle line shares track with the Hammersmith and City and the Metropolitan lines. The Hammersmith and City line also shares track with the District line between Aldgate East and Barking. Basically, the subsurface lines we have no problem. They are always running over each other's tracks. Can't hardly stop them. I suppose I should also mention that Ruislip Depot gives us a connection between the Metropolitan and the Central line, as well as the Piccadilly line. So that's most of the tube, isn't it? You'd have to double back on yourself a lot, and I dare say one could have a lot of fun figuring out the most efficient route, but it could theoretically be done, geographically speaking. There is one outlier here, and that's the Waterloo and City line. While that has passenger interchanges with several other lines, it has no physical connection to them. If you need to get a train out of the Waterloo and City line, you have to use a crane and lift it out of Waterloo Depot. So there we are foiled. It is not possible to take a train over all the lines, including the Waterloo and City. You could, of course, cheat things a bit. Since Bank is also on the Central and Northern lines, and Waterloo is on the Northern, Bakerloo and Jubilee lines, and there are no stations between Bank and Waterloo on the Waterloo and City, you could argue that you have done the line in terms of the stations. But if we're being absolutely realistic, there are several reasons why you couldn't take a tube train on every bit of the underground. Maybe I should make a series out of this in which I crush everyone's transport-related dreams. Well, I hope you enjoyed this incompletely covered tale from the tube. If so, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more. I would like, as I so often do, to thank my donors on Ko-fi, on Patreon, and here on YouTube for your generous support. You are the unexpected link to my Central line. And I will see you all again very soon. Cheerio.